Hi guys, I'm so sorry about this. I'm just in between appointments, so I'm just trying to make some time here. So this one today is going to be about 10 ways that you can break the trauma bond. So first of all, what's good to know is that bonding is a normal process of connection. When you're newly in a relationship or when you're trying to develop a relationship, neurotypicals bond. The more time you spend together, if you're being physically intimate, if you're sharing a life, you're sharing things, you're sharing time, energy, money, you're going to bond. Neurotypicals, right? Abusers or narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, they don't bond. They really don't. So it's a one-sided bond, right? There's no reciprocity. So the trauma bond is not a normal bond. It is created through intermittent reinforcement. It's created through love bombing and, then withholding, right? So there's love bombing, intense love, love, intense flattery, putting you on a pedestal. They could love bomb you through taking you on climbing trips or buying you nice things or giving you money, any different way. It could be, flattery, whatever. Then they withhold sex, communication, affection, consistency, things like that. So it's this intermittent sort of reinforcement that creates dependency and self-condemnation in the victim. So in order to truly understand sort of the implications of the trauma bond, one thing to keep in mind to note is that the trauma bond is happening in the part of your mind that is your emotional mind, right? But the rational mind is not trauma bonded, right? It's all based on an emotional manipulator manipulating your emotions to be bonded to them. But the rational mind knows better. So number one way to break that trauma bond is to separate facts from feelings. It's not going to feel right to leave the cluster B because your emotions are really, really confused and you've been trauma bonded and you've been manipulated and your emotions have been used against you to have a bond with this narcissist. But you need to use your rational mind. And one way you can do that is you can write a list of the pros and cons. Number two, let the facts run the show. Let your list run the show. Write down the facts. You could write down the things that you've been subjected to. Cheating, lying. This person may have broken up a family, hurt your children, hurt the affair partner's children. That person could have withheld communication, information, honesty, sex, affection, verbal compliments. They could have used withholding. They could have engaged in financial abuse. They could have kept your name off of assets, controlled the finances, controlled the money. They could have used, intermittent reinforcement. They could have verbally abused you. They could have, used dismissiveness, treated you like you were a slave, treated you like you were less than, like you were a servant. Maybe they didn't do any work in the house. Maybe they had, a whole list of items in a home that you lived in that, for 9 or 10 years, they did nothing on the property. These are small things, but, it could have been verbal, emotional, physical, psychological abuse. Again, cheating, lying, gaslighting, stonewalling, manipulation. Write down the list of what this person actually did to you. The things, the ways that their actions, not their words, not their lies, not their manipulation, but their actions. Write down the list, okay? And then if you ever think that, just look at that list. You can put it on your wall and you can just look at that list and be like, regardless of what my feelings are telling me or my emotions are telling me about this, dysfunctional, toxic person, the facts, the rational mind looks at that rational list. 3, another way is now is the best time to leave. The longer you stay, the harder it is to get away. The more enmeshed you are, the more commingled you are, the more you're bonded to this toxic individual that does not have the capability of bonding with you or their children or stepchildren or friends. They don't bond, right? So this is a non-reciprocal situation. And if you talk to their past partners, it was the same. They did not bond. That person bonded. It was a one-sided bond. Their affair partner, they're not bonding with that new or their new source of supply. They're not bonding. It's one-sided. The victims don't know it until they get clarity, until they really do a deep dive into cluster B personality disorders. It's hard to know, right? But now is the best time. So stop putting it off. Just get out, because the longer you stay, the longer it's going to take for you to recover. 4, reach out for support. Family, friends, get a coach, get a narcissistic abuse coach, get a therapist. I had a brilliant therapist that showed me the truth, that helped me to see that I was with somebody. I'd never even heard of the term cluster B. Like I literally I'm so grateful that I had already been going to a long-term therapist. They can help you to see what you can't see. Now that takes a really good therapist. I'm not saying that every therapist is going to be able to identify this, but if you write down, the ways in which you're being treated, the behaviors, the stonewalling, the gaslighting, the silent treatment, the withholding, the dismissiveness, the superiority, the perfectionism, write these things down. And a really good therapist is going to be onto the fact that these are all symptoms of cluster B. They can't diagnose, because you can't diagnose somebody you've never met. I can't diagnose, but you can definitely say whether somebody has like these highly narcissistic traits. Very important. Get good friends that understand. You may have friends that invalidate your experience. Do not talk to them about the situation. Only be around people that understand these nuances and can help validate your reality. Because if you're one of these victims, one of the hardest things is that you can be with somebody, especially if you're with a covert narcissist. They look like a saint. They look like the nicest person ever. You may have also bought into that mask, You may have bought into it for 10 years. You may have also thought that they were a saint. They were very nice. Do some reading or watch some videos on the Chris Watts case. I made a video on it, but I erased it because I had some misinformation in there, and I don't want to be a spreader of misinformation. So, I just didn't have all my facts right. But if you look at the Chris Watts case, he is probably a narcissist, or he was a narcissistic psychopath, and he was the nicest guy. Everyone thought he was like a saint. They thought he was like the nicest husband. He was like the world's greatest dad. His little daughter said, "Daddy, you're my hero." And, he strangled her in front of her sister next to his wife's dead body that he had driven in a car for 45 minutes with those 2 daughters in the truck, with their little legs dangling over their dead mother. And then he strangled them both, killed his whole family, killed his pregnant wife and two babies, 2 little girls, 2 and 4, I believe. I could be wrong on their ages, but pretty close. And he put them in like some sort of oil, canister. And this is a guy that everyone said was a nice guy, right? Everyone thought he was a nice person. Everyone thought he was just, was nice. Now, if you dig a little deeper, nobody really knew the guy. Like, he was sort of unknowable. He was sort of like, he had this mask. So he wasn't really emotionally intimate with any human being whatsoever. So there was that. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing. So number 4 was reach out for support, family, friend, coach, therapist. 5, realize the danger involved, especially if they don't have a new source of supply, and especially if you're dealing with either a malignant narcissist or somebody who's more psychopathic or sociopath. Now, there are narcissists who are absolutely nonviolent, and they will never perpetrate acts of violence. That is true. So I'm not saying that all narcissists are violent. A lot of them actually aren't. Their violence is purely emotional and psychological. They may not be physically or even verbally abusive. It could be very under the radar. That's why it's actually called hidden abuse. So, but some are very dangerous. So, if they don't have a new source of supply, then it could be particularly dangerous for you. So be very strategic and careful about how and when you leave. Ross Rosenberg says the best thing to do if you figure out that you're with a narcissist is to sneak away quietly. 6, the trauma bond is real, and abusers are going to try and manipulate you back into the trauma bond, especially if they don't have a new source of supply. But even if they do, at some point, they're going to get bored with that new source of supply, and they're going to go back in and dip back in and try to see if they can reconnect with you. And you want to be really careful that you do not leave the door open for them. So no contact is vital. Block them on Facebook, email, telephone, Venmo, any of that. You want to block them. I'd say that some narcissists will just slink away, especially sociopaths, the ones that are like highly sociopathic. Sometimes they'll just go away, right? Especially if you created a narcissistic injury, they might just slink away. But others are going to come back. It really depends upon the type that they are. If they think that there's any chance that they can come back in and extract more narcissistic supply from you, they will certainly try. So that's why the whole no contact, serious blocking is pretty important. And then you might actually have some of the symptoms of withdrawal when you get out of these relationships, because this is not a love bond. This is not emotional intimacy and reciprocity. This is a trauma bond. You have been psychologically and emotionally manipulated to have a bond with somebody who has a character disturbance, no empathy or very impaired empathy, very little remorse, and they've been leading a double life behind your back, but they've been using crumbs and intermittent reinforcement and manipulation to keep you in their harem. 7, deprogram yourself to stop self-abusing. The thing is that lots of people that deprogram yourself to stop self-abusing. You have been brainwashed to self-castigate. Remember who you are. Do things that you used to love. Find that person again before you got caught up in the trauma bond. Watch your self-talk. You may be telling yourself all sorts of crap like, I'm not worthy, I'm discardable, I'm replaceable, and I want you to replace it with, I am lovable, I'm worthy, I am enough, I'm a child of God, I'm beautiful, I'm kind, I'm considerate, I have wonderful relationships, I have great friends. These people are masters at making you feel like you're not enough, like you're not good enough. Because remember, for them, everything is about being superior. They are superior, you are inferior, they are perfect, you are flawed. You are the identified patient in the relationship. And if you're a sweet little codependent, you're used to taking on more than your fair share of responsibility. So you might be the type that's like, oh yeah, this is my fault. Everything's my fault. I think this is my fault. You might be really good at doing that. Don't do that. You're not to blame for somebody cheating. If somebody cheats on you, that is a personal choice, right? Cheating, people cheat all the time, not only narcissists and sociopaths, some people who are actively in their addiction. I was an alcoholic, and when I was actively in my addiction, I cheated. So it's not that you can't cheat. People cheat. Some people cheat for, because they think they found their true love. Other people cheat because they're highly narcissistic. One thing to note is the ones that never apologize, never take responsibility, and blame their partners for their cheating. Those are probably the ones that are either, stuck in their addiction and they're highly narcissistic because they're in addiction, or they may be borderline narcissistic personality disorder or sort of sociopathic. It does run the gamut, but people that cheat and then blame the person that they cheated on for cheating, that is a very toxic thing to do, and it's incorrect. It's a personal choice. No matter what the situation, you made a choice. You made a choice. It has nothing to do with the person you're with. It has more to do with the person who cheats and where they are in their journey of sort of healing and being a decent human being. Trauma bonding, number 8. Trauma bonding is actually worse for people who have had childhood trauma. When the narcissist begins to program you by their devaluing statements, by devaluing you, by not listening to you, by invalidating your feelings, by dismissing you, by their, neglect, by not responding to you, by giving you the silent treatment, by ignoring you, by not taking an active interest in anything that you're doing in your life, however they're doing it, whether it be more overt, where they're saying insulting things, or it could be all under the radar and very covert, where they never give compliments, they never give appreciation, they rarely ever say thank you, they don't apologize, they just don't interact. They just basically, maybe they're the neglectful narcissist where they just ignore you. So there may be a part of you, if you had child abuse as a child or trauma, there may be a part of you that buys into those lies, okay? Now, if the negative message that this abuser sends you is resonating with your old messages, with that old tape, then they're going to feel really familiar to you, and you may actually believe that they're true. But the thing to note is that these are old wounds. And this is where I really encourage you, if you can, to seek a trauma therapist, especially one that uses EMDR and specializes in attachment trauma and helping people heal their abandonment wounds. Because here the narcissist is, they are saying things or treating you in a way, it could be, that you were severely neglected and they're being very neglectful, and they're reinforcing this idea that you don't matter, you're not important, it's okay for you to be ignored, your needs don't really matter. That's very familiar, and it's reinforcing that little tiny girl, little tiny boy who was like, I don't matter, I just, neglect is fine, blah, 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 right? So you've got to work on those wounds because you're being triggered by a narcissist, but it's a very old wound and it's not real. It's not true. You are worthy. You are lovable. All human beings deserve to be listened to and respected, and to be, not neglected, especially if you're in a relationship that's like a marriage or a partnership. You deserve to have somebody interact with you, to care about your feelings and your thoughts. And if you're with a personality disordered individual, they can't do that. They just don't. They don't do that with anyone. They're not capable. But your job is to deal and heal from that complex PTSD and those childhood abandonment wounds that the narcissist or the sociopath is triggering. 9, letting go. If you were discarded, do not believe the lie that you were not good enough. And this sounds kind of crazy, but if you were discarded, it means that the narcissist had found another source of supply and they were securing that source of supply. And that person, you should feel sorry for them. They're in trouble. And it may not be for 5, you don't know. It could be a long time before they start devaluing. But that person is in trouble, right? So they're not the lucky one. Yeah, they're getting the love bombing that you got in the beginning, and that was really nice, but that's not real. And who wants an artificial fake life, right? So recognize that if they discarded you, it is a gift. It's a gift. It's your gift of freedom. You get to use this time to break away freely. And it might even be easier for you to break away because the way the narcissist works is if they're actively engaged with the new source of supply, they're really it takes a lot of energy for them to bring a fake person to a relationship, right? They've got to really work on that. It's exhausting. So their energy is going towards that. So they don't have as much time to manipulate you and keep you in their dark web, and they're otherwise engaged. So this is your time to get away. And know this, originally, when that narcissist attached to you, they did so because they saw that you had so much to give, right? They're takers. They saw that you were a giver. And they are the only reason they're probably getting rid of you if they're discarding you is either you're onto them and you're calling out their bullshit. You've done some work on your codependence and you are asking for a relationship that includes honesty, authenticity, and reciprocity, and they don't like that, right? You might be saying no, you might be setting boundaries, you might be asking for, to get your name on assets and that they've been blocking you from for 10 years and, stealing from you, who knows exactly what, but you may be advocating for a true partnership, in which case they're not gonna go for that, right? They're gonna start getting rid of you. Or another case is they have bankrupted you. They have sucked you dry. They have taken from you emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially to such a place where you're depleted, you're depressed, you're unable to perform at that high level that you were able to perform at because you're, with somebody who's leading a double life. Your intuition may know it. You may be getting all sorts of sicknesses from being with this person because the cognitive dissonance of, trying to believe this one thing and, your body, your brain trying to reconcile these two ideas in your head of this is the love of my life. This is my wonderful partner. He loves me or she loves me with, this person might be sociopathic. They're doing all these things. They have this double life. They're doing all this gaslighting and lying. It's very, very hard to reconcile those two things. You just may be to a point where you're just totally depleted. These people are emotional vampires. They will suck you dry, and it can be very, very depleting. So that is when they're going to start moving on to the next target. When you're on to them, maybe when they found somebody that has more money than you or who isn't as depleted as you, a fresh kill. Whatever reason, they've sucked you dry, you're emotionally bankrupt, whatever. They're moving on. They've discarded. You're the lucky one. Get out. This is the time, and consider this the best gift that you've ever had. And then, whatever you do not buy into their story about how useless you are and, that you're just worthless and that you're easily discardable and you don't matter. That is all a bunch of BS. It's just how they want to leave people. And if you talk to their old partners, you will find out they did the same thing over and over again and tried to make that person feel like they were nothing. They really tried. And sometimes for people who have had childhood trauma, they can internalize this, but I'm going to encourage you to really watch that self-talk and to really start talking to yourself like you would a best friend. Start treating yourself with like love and kindness and respect, and really watch that dialogue that you're allowing in your brain. Start watching your thinking. Think of yourself as like the rational brain and the emotional brain, and step back, and meditation really helps with this, and watch your thinking. And really, I want to encourage you to really love yourself and start talking to yourself like you would a dear friend. And number 10, there's going to be a detox and rehabilitation process from the trauma bond. It's almost like you're breaking, it is. It's like you're breaking an addiction. You're breaking an addiction to shopping, to the internet, to alcohol, to drugs, whatever. You're going to have a detox. You're going to have these, you're also going to go through the normal grieving process. That's also, even though they're not normal, you're still going to go through the grieving process. And you're going to have to do a lot of detoxing, and then there's going to be a long road of rehabilitation. As we've discussed in a lot of these videos, these relationships are not normal. These breakups are not normal. They take a lot longer to get over. You've got to do a lot of work around it. I highly encourage you to get a narcissistic abuse recovery coach or a trauma coach, as well as a therapist if you can afford it. And there are, again, low cost alternatives online. I am doing narcissistic abuse coaching. So if you're interested in coaching, I will attach a link to my website, and I've got some coaching packages on there. I also have a 30 minutes consultation for free to see if we're a good fit. But I would love to help you through the stages to heal from the narcissistic abuse syndrome or the complex PTSD, to sort of walk hand in hand with you on that journey and kind of show you what's worked for me and some of the tools that I've learned through this process. So I hope you guys are having a really wonderful day. I hope that you are thriving, and just remember, there are truly good people out there. There are people that that are wonderful, and you deserve to be treated with love, care, empathy, grace, honesty, respect, honest communication, and true connection. You deserve that. You just got to do some work to heal this wound. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.